"This way, General," Sergeant Chen whispered, her body low and tense as she guided Vextar through a maintenance corridor. The flickering emergency lights cast strange shadows across her face, highlighting the determination in her eyes. Vextar pressed a compression bandage against his secondary thoracic cavity, the strange violet blood seeping between his fingers. His tertiary heart had increased its rhythm to compensate for the damaged vessel. "Your attackers," he managed through labored breathing. "They are not standard military." Chen checked the corridor junction before responding. "Radical faction. Terra first. They believe any alien contact will contaminate humanity." She glanced back at him, her expression hardening. Ironic, since they're acting like the worst of what humanity has to offer. A distant explosion rocked the facility, causing dust to rain from the ceiling panels. Chen's hand instinctively tightened on her sidearm, that curious mechanical device that had caught Vextar's attention. "Sergeant, your weapon," Vextar said, scientific curiosity momentarily overriding his pain. "The projectiles. They changed trajectory mid-flight." Chen threw him a puzzled look. "Smart rounds. Basic stuff." She tapped the magazine. "Microprocessors in the shell. Tiny control surfaces. Nothing special." Vextar's secondary eyelids fluttered in surprise. At those velocities, with that mass-to-thrust ratio, the material stress should tear the control surfaces apart. Chen shrugged. "Carbon nanoweave composite. Flexible but stronger than traditional alloys." She said it casually, as if discussing the weather rather than material science that contradicted Conclave understanding of physics. "Your civilization barely has interstellar capability," Vextar noted. "How have you developed composite materials of that caliber without corresponding advances in other technologies?" A bitter smile crossed Chen's face. "Necessity, General. Earth doesn't forgive mistakes." She peered around a corner, then gestured for him to follow. "We developed better bullets before better medicine, because predators don't wait for you to heal." They passed through a security checkpoint, Chen placing her palm against a scanner. The door hissed open, revealing a short-range armory. She quickly gathered additional ammunition and a compact medical kit. The Conclave assessment of human technological development must be significantly flawed, Vextar said, watching her efficient movements. Chen removed her tactical vest, revealing a second, more serious weapon holstered against her ribs. "Your people measured our spaceships and energy production." She checked the strange weapons magazine, dense black material unlike the ammunition for her sidearm. "Nobody bothered asking about our bullets." As she helped Vextar apply a more effective seal to his wound, the facility's AI announced in a calm voice. "Warning. Security breach in sectors 7 through 12. Unauthorized access to weapons research archives." Chen froze, her eyes widening. "That's impossible. Those systems are air-gapped, independent security protocols." She activated a nearby terminal, her fingers flying across the interface. "They'd need bioprint access from at least 2 Level 5 personnel to." She stopped mid-sentence, her face draining of color. "What is it, Sergeant?" Vextar asked. She turned the screen toward him, showing security footage of the attackers removing realistic face masks to reveal the distinctive ridged cranial structures of Fraxian mercenaries. "This isn't about killing you, General. Someone's using Terra First as cover." She checked her weapon with new urgency. "They're after the prototype vault." "What prototypes?" Vextar asked, suddenly aware that the diplomatic briefing on human military capability had been woefully incomplete. Chen's eyes met his, grim determination replacing professional courtesy. "The ones that would violate about 16 different Conclave weapons conventions." She helped him to his feet. "And if the Fraxians get them, the galaxy is screwed in ways your people haven't even imagined." "Vault 7. Vextar repeated, stumbling slightly as they hurried through the dimly lit maintenance tunnel. "That designation was not in my briefing materials." Chen steadied him with a firm grip, "because officially, it doesn't exist." She checked the small tactical display on her wrist. "The Conclave only knows what we agreed to show them. The implication sent a chill through Vextar's secondary nervous system. Your species joined the conclave under false pretenses. Not false, Chen corrected, pausing at a junction to listen for pursuit. Just incomplete. Like how you didn't mention the Fraxians have been expanding into the Orion Spur until we discovered it ourselves. Vextar couldn't argue with that. Conclave politics often involved strategic omissions. What's in Vault 7 that would interest Fraxian mercenaries? Chen's expression darkened. The results of Project Prometheus. Weapons development protocols that survived the resource wars. She glanced at him. Your people think we're just clever apes who got lucky with FTL. The Fraxians apparently figured out there's more to it. A distant clattering sound caused them both to freeze. Chen motioned for silence, then carefully extracted something from her boot, a small mirror on an extendable rod that she used to check around the corner. 2 hostiles. Fraxian scan tech. Military grade. We should retreat, Vextar suggested. My emergency beacon is being jammed, Chen interrupted. Standard Fraxian first move. She unholstered her sidearm, examining it with practiced efficiency. Vextar noticed slight discoloration around the firing chamber. Your weapon is malfunctioning, he observed. Chen nodded. Condensation in the barrel. This section's environmental controls are compromised. Without hesitation, she disassembled the gun with astonishing speed, her fingers moving through what must have been hundreds of operations. Remarkable, Vextar couldn't help commenting. In the Conclave military, a weapon malfunction would result in immediate disposal and replacement. Must be nice having an endless supply chain, Chen muttered, wiping components with a specialized cloth from her vest pocket. Down here, we make do. She reassembled the weapon, adding a small component from a hidden compartment in her belt. Personal modification. Compensates for humidity. Such customization would be considered dangerously unpredictable in conclave forces. Ken chambered around. Standardization creates predictability. Predictability gets you killed. She met his gaze. Earth taught us that lesson through millions of years of evolution. The predator that adapts survives. The realization struck Vextar like a physical blow. The Conclave had evaluated human technology by its apparent sophistication, not its fundamental design philosophy. Humans weren't dangerous because of what they built, but because of how they thought about building. A sudden explosion rocked the tunnel. Emergency lighting switched to deep red, casting sinister shadows across Chen's determined face. They're hurting us, she concluded, checking her tactical display. Classic encirclement. She quickly accessed a maintenance panel, pulling up facility schematics. Vextar noticed how the interface adapted to her specific gestures. Another customization. There, she said, pointing to a narrow passage. Ventilation shaft. Too small for Fraxians in combat gear. Also too small for me, Vextar noted, gesturing to his larger frame. Chen glanced at the approaching heat signatures on her display, then back to him. Her eyes assessed his alien physiology with cold calculation. Your species can detach limbs for regeneration, correct? Emergency survival adaptation. Vextar's tertiary heart fluttered with alarm. Technically yes, but then lose the secondary arms, or we both die here. She was already preparing a tourniquet. They'll grow back, right? Eventually, Vextar admitted reluctantly, but the process is extremely painful. Chen checked her ammunition. Pain means you are still alive to feel it. She handed him a small injector from her medical kit. Human-grade anesthetic. Probably won't kill you. As Vextar considered the barbaric suggestion, Chen's display flickered with new information. Her expression changed instantly. They've breached the primary server, she whispered, horror evident in her voice. They're accessing the Prometheus protocols. Human warfare never stands still, Chen explained as they moved deeper into the historical weapons archive. She gestured toward a display case containing what appeared to be simple tubes with wooden handles. French trench knives. World War I noticed the brass knuckle grip, the triangular blade. Vextar examined the primitive weapon with newfound appreciation. The shape prevents wound closure, and the brass knuckles let you stun before you stab. Chen nodded approvingly. One design, 3 functions. We've been thinking like that for millennia. They paused before another display, a rifle with strange attachments that Vextar couldn't identify. His universal translator struggled with the designation. Sten gun with improvised suppressors and shortened barrel. Resistance fighters, Chen explained. No factories, no supply chains. Just people with basic tools modifying weapons in attics and basements to fight against overwhelming technological superiority. A grim smile crossed her face. Sound familiar? The implication wasn't lost on Vextar. Throughout Conclave history, species who relied entirely on advanced technology often collapsed when that technology failed. Humans, it seemed, had built redundancy into their very thinking. This approach to warfare, Vextar said slowly, it violates core Conclave military doctrine. We believe in technological progression, abandoning outdated systems entirely. Chen opened a medical cabinet, extracting supplies for Vextar's wound. And if your energy weapons fail, if your fabricators break down, replacement units are deployed. And if those aren't available, she applied a pressure bandage to his injury with practiced efficiency. Humans don't have the luxury of waiting for replacements. We've always had to make do with what's around us. Vextar's gaze wandered to a curved blade in a nearby case. The description indicated it had been used in something called the Pacific Theater, a jungle warfare setting where ammunition had been limited. You revert to previous technological states when necessary, he observed. We don't see it as reverting, Chen corrected, administering a stimulant to help with his blood loss. Just using the right tool for the situation. A knife doesn't run out of ammunition. Before Vextar could respond, the facility eye's voice echoed through the chamber, its usually calm tone carrying a subtle note of urgency. Warning: atmospheric containment systems compromised in sectors 3 through 7. Oxygen levels decreasing. Emergency breathing apparatus advised. Chen checked her tactical display, her expression hardening. They're systematically depressurizing sections, forcing us to move where they want us to go. She studied the environmental readouts. 15 minutes until this section becomes uninhabitable. The Fraxians can survive in lower oxygen environments. Vextar noted grimly. Exactly. Chen moved to a sealed case, pressing her palm against the security scanner. Their environmental suits can filter our atmosphere, but we can't breathe theirs. It's an asymmetric advantage. The case hissed open, revealing emergency breathing apparatus. Unfortunately for them, humans specialize in countering asymmetric advantages. As she helped Vextar adjust an oxygen mask to his alien physiology, he noticed something remarkable about the device. This isn't designed for my species. No, Chen confirmed, but I've modified it to work with your respiratory system. The principle is simple enough. She secured her own mask. Adaptation over specialization. A distant rumbling vibration traveled through the floor. Chen's head tilted slightly. Her expression focused as she processed the sensation. They're breaching the environmental seals between sections, she concluded. Classic Fraxian tactic. Control the battlefield environment first, then hunt down survivors. She reached for a display case containing what appeared to be crude incendiary devices. But they're forgetting something important about humans and environments. What's that? Vextar asked, adjusting to the restricted airflow through his modified mask. Chen's eyes reflected cold determination as she examined a historically significant flamethrower. We don't just adapt to hostile environments, General. We weaponize them. This is what we call a field expedient solution, Chen explained as she mixed cleaning compounds in precise ratios. Her movements were methodical yet quick, betraying years of practice at something that should be well outside a soldier's standard training. Vextar watched with growing fascination. In the Conclave, we have dedicated chemical warfare specialists for such tasks. Must be nice, Chen muttered, carefully measuring a viscous yellow liquid into a metal container. On Earth, specialization is a luxury. When I was deployed in the Amazon conflict, our supply lines were cut for 3 weeks. The squad chemist took a bullet on day 2. She glanced up at him. By day 3, everyone left was a chemist. The implications made Vextar's secondary brain race with calculations. The Conclave military assessment had classified humans as moderately dangerous, based on their weapons technology. But if every human soldier possessed cross-disciplinary knowledge, "You're creating binary chemical explosives," Vextar observed, recognizing the principles if not the specific compounds. "The metal will fragment on detonation." Chen nodded approvingly. Shaped charge effect. The Fraxians are wearing combat hardening designed to disperse energy weapon impacts. She sealed the improvised device with methodical precision. But good old-fashioned kinetic penetration still works fine. She placed the completed device near the main entrance, then began work on another using completely different components: plastic casing from a broken light fixture, fiber optic cables from a damaged terminal, and a power cell extracted from emergency lighting. This design shares no components with the previous one, Vextar noted. "Different tools for different problems," Chen replied, stripping insulation from a cable with her teeth. "The first one handles their frontline troops. This one is for their combat engineers." She smiled grimly. Fraxians always send tech specialists to hack environmental systems. This little surprise scrambles their neural implants. "You're familiar with Fraxian neural architecture. Required reading for special tactics. Know your enemy." She finished the second device and moved on to creating what appeared to be simple mechanical traps using maintenance parts. Humans catalog the biology, psychology, and technology of every species we encounter. Knowledge is survival. A distant explosion vibrated through the deck plates. Chen's head tilted slightly, processing the sound and vibration. Breaching charges. Primary maintenance shaft. She checked her wrist display. 12 minutes to hypoxia in this section. As she finished the last improvised device, Vextar finally understood what made humans truly dangerous. It wasn't just their adaptability, but their fundamental approach to problem solving, viewing limitations as challenges rather than obstacles. "Why were humans classified as a minor power when joining the Conclave?" he asked, with this approach to warfare. "Politics," Chen interrupted, distributing the improvised devices at strategic points. "After our last global conflict, most nations decided projecting strength was less important than avoiding unnecessary wars." She checked the oxygen levels on her display. "Our planetary council decided presenting ourselves as a modest, unthreatening species would be more advantageous for peaceful integration." Before Vextar could respond, the distant sound of Fraxian combat boots echoed through the ventilation system. Chen motioned for silence, her body tensing like a predator preparing to strike. She pressed a small device into Vextar's hand, a simple mechanical trigger connected to the network of improvised explosives. When they'd reached that door, she whispered, "Count to 3, then press it." The general noticed something remarkable in Chen's demeanor. Not fear, but a calculating focus that reminded him of apex predators from his own world. "You've done this before," he observed quietly. Chen's eyes never left the door as she checked her sidearm one final time. "Death World, remember. Humans don't just build weapons, General." Her voice dropped to a whisper as the sounds of Fraxian breaching equipment grew louder. "We became weapons. Necessity required it." The door began to glow red as Fraxian cutting tools made contact with the metal, and Chen gave Vextar a nod. "Time to show them why you don't corner something that evolved on a planet that wants it dead." Vextar moved slowly among the containment fields, his 4 eyes wide with a mixture of scientific curiosity and growing horror. Each prototype represented technology that the Conclave had deemed theoretically possible, but practically unfeasible, yet here they existed as functioning devices. "This atmospheric converter," he said, gesturing to a deceptively small device humming with potential energy, "could transform a habitable world into an uninhabitable one in days. Or save a dying planet just as quickly." Chen countered, checking the security feeds on a nearby console. The technology itself isn't inherently evil. The application determines its morality. Vextar studied her expression, searching for deception, but finding only conviction. Yet you chose to contain these weapons rather than deploy them. Why? Chen paused at a display case housing what appeared to be a simple metallic sphere. The information panel labeled it Autonomous Molecular Deconstructor, with a hazard classification Vextar had never seen before. When I was 12, my history teacher showed us footage from our 20th century wars, Chen said, her voice grown quiet. Hundreds of children with radiation burns, cities reduced to ash, entire cultures erased. She met Vextar's gaze. Humanity learned something that maybe a conclave never had to. Weapons have consequences beyond their immediate use. Vextar's secondary brain processed this unexpected perspective. The conclave had always approached weapons development as an inevitable progression. Create the most effective tools available, then establish treaties regarding their use. The idea of voluntarily restricting development itself was foreign. The Prometheus Protocol isn't a weapon, Chen continued, accessing the secure terminal with her biometrics. It's a framework for weapons assessment. After our last global conflict, the surviving nations created it to evaluate not just a weapon's immediate effect, but its long-term consequences. The terminal displayed a complex decision tree that incorporated not just technical specifications, but ecological impact, proliferation risk, and something labeled sociological regression potential. Every human weapons designer is required to run their concept through this protocol, Chen explained. If it fails any of the ethical gates, development is prohibited regardless of military advantage. Vextar's primary heart skipped a beat as understanding dawned. This is what the Fraxians want. Not a specific weapon, but the methodology to develop weapons that the Conclave would never anticipate. Chen nodded grimly. Imagine Fraxian arms dealers with a systematic approach to creating weapons that slip through Conclave regulatory frameworks. She gestured to the vault around them. Everything here was developed, then contained because it violated our ethical standards. The Fraxians wouldn't share those restrictions. A thunderous explosion interrupted them, much closer than the previous ones. The archive's reinforced walls shuddered, dust raining from the ceiling. Security monitors flickered, showing Fraxian forces converging on their position. They've breached the secondary containment, Chen said, checking her tactical display. Drazkar is leading them personally. Vextar recognized the name with a chill of dread. Drazkar was notorious even among Fraxians, a weapons dealer responsible for introducing disruptive technologies to dozens of conflict zones across 3 sectors. We cannot allow him to access the Prometheus Protocol, Vextar stated, his voice firm with newfound conviction. The consequences would be catastrophic. Chen opened a secure weapons locker, revealing equipment far more advanced than her standard-issue sidearm. I was hoping to avoid this, she said, removing what appeared to be a gauntlet of interlocking metal segments. As she slipped it over her hand, the segments came alive, conforming perfectly to her anatomy. What is that? Vextar asked, fascinated despite the dire circumstances. Prototype tactical system, Chen replied, the gauntlet extending up her arm and interfacing with her neural implants. One of the few developments that passed the Prometheus ethical assessment. Her eyes met his, deadly serious. Remember how I said humans don't just build weapons, we become them. This is what I meant. The gauntlet pulsed with energy as it synchronized with her nervous system, and Vextar witnessed a transformation in the human soldier, her movements becoming more fluid, her reactions visibly accelerating as the system augmented her already formidable capabilities. Time to show Drazkar what happens when you back a Deathworlder into a corner, Chen said, her voice eerily calm as the vault doors began to glow red from Fraxian cutting tools. What fascinates me, Vextar said, watching Chen's hands manipulate components with astonishing precision, is the absence of fabrication equipment. In Conclave military engineering, Automated systems constructed devices according to pre-approved specifications. Chen didn't look up from her work. The human brain is the most advanced fabrication system in this room. She made a minute adjustment to a power coupling. Machines follow instructions. Humans improvise based on principles. She connected two seemingly incompatible components using a technique Vextar had never seen before, creating a makeshift adapter from materials that shouldn't work together. His scientific mind rebelled at the improvisation, yet the energy readings on her diagnostic tool showed optimal flow. That connection violates standard engineering protocols, he observed. Standard protocols assume standard conditions. Chen tested the connection under increasing load. Combat isn't standard. Neither is survival. As she continued assembling the device, Vextar noticed something remarkable about her methodology. She wasn't following a blueprint or referencing specifications. She was building from first principles, adapting the design in real time based on available materials and immediate needs. You're not constructing a predetermined device, he realized. You're creating something new. Chen nodded. The Fraxians are using modified neural dampeners to counteract conventional EMP. This needs to bypass their shielding. She held up a component that Vextar recognized as part of the facility's communication array. Their technology is designed to resist expected attacks, so we give them something unexpected. This approach would be impossible in Conclave military, Vextar admitted. Our engineers require approved designs, tested protocols. Testing is a luxury, Chen replied, making a final adjustment. In the field, you iterate on the fly. First version works or you die. Second version works better. Third version works efficiently. She connected the final circuit. Evolution in microcosm. Vextar's tertiary heart beat faster as comprehension dawned. Your technological development philosophy mirrors your biological evolution. Exactly. Chen calibrated the device using nothing but her senses and experience. Natural selection doesn't plan ahead or follow protocols. It tries solutions, discards failures, refines successes. She looked up at him. Humans internalize that process. We don't just follow it. We are it. The facility shuddered as another explosion rocked the nearby sections. Chen's display showed Fraxian forces establishing a systematic search pattern, clearing each area with military precision. They're being methodical, Vextar observed. Standard Fraxian doctrine. Secure, search, advance. Predictable, Chen nodded, and prediction enables countermeasures. She activated her completed device, a spherical mechanism that hummed with controlled electromagnetic energy, calibrated specifically to Fraxian neural patterns. They'll expect us to run or hide. Instead, we're hunting them. This approach so violated Conclave tactical doctrine that Vextar's military mind struggled to process it. Inferior forces were expected to evade, not engage. Yet Chen was preparing to actively pursue numerically superior enemies. You said humans possess an intuitive understanding of underlying principles, Vextar recalled. What principle drives this tactical choice? Chen checked her modified weapon one final time. Predators expect prey to flee. When prey attacks instead, it creates psychological disruption. She smiled grimly. Earth's apex predators learned to fear humans not because we were stronger, but because we were unpredictable. She handed Vextar a smaller version of her electromagnetic device. This will disrupt their neural implants without affecting your physiology. Short range, single use. Vextar examined the elegant simplicity of the design. What would have required a Conclave engineering team weeks to develop, this human had created in minutes from salvaged parts. I'm beginning to understand why the Fraxians want your weapon development methodology, he said quietly. It's not about the devices themselves. Chen nodded. It's about the mindset. Weapons aren't just tools to humans, General. They're expressions of our relationship with survival itself. She checked her tactical display one last time. Hrazkar's team is approaching the junction. ready to show them what happens when they hunt a species that spent millions of years perfecting the art of not being prey. Phyrexian combat doctrine relies on predictable opponent responses. Vextar explained as they moved through maintenance tunnels that Chen had reconfigured into an elaborate trap network. They expect us to retreat towards secure positions or reinforcements. Chen nodded, monitoring the tactical display showing heat signatures of Phyrexian teams systematically clearing sections. So instead, we move parallel to their advance, targeting their support elements first. Her fingers danced across the environmental controls, adjusting temperature gradients in specific corridors. This will force their thermal imaging to recalibrate constantly. Vextar watched with growing appreciation as Chen manipulated systems that were never designed as weapons. She reprogrammed maintenance drones to create false movement signatures, rerouted ventilation to disperse their scent trails, and reversed lighting sequences to destroy night vision adaptation. "You're creating sensory warfare conditions," he observed. "Humans excel at targeting perception rather than just bodies." Chen replied, triggering a series of high-frequency sonic pulses through the facility's emergency alert system. The pulses were specifically calibrated to the resonant frequency of Phyrexian auditory membranes. Their species evolved with different sensory priorities than ours. We can exploit those differences. They moved into position near a junction where Chen's tactical display indicated a Phyrexian technical team was attempting to bypass security to the main vault. Vextar found himself instinctively analyzing the environment as Chen had taught him, seeing resources instead of obstacles, advantages instead of limitations. "The power conduit," he whispered suddenly, noticing the junction box feeding the section. "If we modulate the electrical current in a specific sequence," Chen glanced at him with surprised approval, "we could create an electromagnetic pulse that would disable their equipment without permanently damaging the facility systems." She nodded. "Do it." Vextar approached the junction box, applying knowledge gained from centuries of combat experience, but thinking with a distinctly human approach. He reconfigured the power flow not according to Conclave protocols, but based on the fundamental principles Chen had demonstrated. When the Phyrexian team rounded the corner, Vextar triggered the improvised EMP with perfect timing. The mercenary systems failed simultaneously, environment suits powering down, weapons losing charge, communication devices falling silent. Before they could react, Chen had incapacitated them with targeted strikes to vulnerability points specific to Phyrexian physiology. "You've studied their anatomy thoroughly," Vextar noted as they secured the unconscious mercenaries. "We study everything that might kill us," Chen replied matter-of-factly. "Knowledge beats technology every time." They quickly interrogated one semi-conscious Phyrexian, learning that Drazkar had divided his forces, half focusing on capturing them, while the other half worked to extract the Prometheus protocol data. "Your approach worked perfectly," Vextar acknowledged. "I would never have considered offensive action with our limited resources." Chen was already checking the captured Phyrexians' equipment, adapting components for their own use. "Deathworlders don't have the luxury of waiting for optimal conditions. We attack from weakness because it's unexpected." She extracted a communication device, reconfiguring it to intercept Phyrexian tactical channels. "Your people see limitations, we see starting points." Through the captured communications, they learned the devastating truth. Drazkar's technical team had already breached the preliminary security of the main vault. They were beginning the data extraction of the Prometheus protocol itself. "They're using a quantum decryption algorithm," Chen said, eyes widening as she processed the information. "That would take weeks to." She stopped mid-sentence, understanding dawning. They'd brought dedicated hardware. They knew exactly what they were after before they ever arrived. Vextar's 4 eyes narrowed in concern. This was meticulously planned. But how did they learn about the protocol in the first place? Chen's expression hardened. "Only 3 non-humans have ever been briefed on its existence." Her eyes met his. All Conclave representatives. The implication hung heavy between them. Someone within the Conclave diplomatic corps had leaked information about Earth's most closely guarded secret. "We need to move now," Chen said, checking her weapon. "The main vault has defenses, but if Drazkar's people understand what they're extracting, they won't need the complete protocol to cause catastrophic damage." As they prepared to move out, Vextar realized something profound had changed within him. He wasn't just applying human tactics. He was beginning to think like a human warrior, seeing the battlefield through the eyes of a species forged in the crucible of a death world. Drazkar's angular face contorted into what passed for a smile among Fraxians as he watched the quantum decryption progress on the vault's main terminal. The data streaming across the screen represented a revolution in weapons development, not just schematics or technical specifications, but an entire framework for conceptualizing, designing, and implementing technologies the Conclave had deemed too dangerous to pursue. "Magnificent," he murmured, his translator rendering the Fraxian word into human standard. "The complete Prometheus protocol." A thunderous explosion rocked the vault entrance, and Drazkar spun to see the reinforced doors buckle inward. Standing in the smoke were two figures, the human female security officer and, surprisingly, General Vextar, who should have been dead hours ago. "Step away from the terminal," Chen commanded, her modified weapon trained on the Fraxian commander. The prototype gauntlet on her arm glowed with energy, neural interfaces pulsing in synchronization with her movements. Drazkar's upper eye ridges raised in amusement. "Sergeant Chen, your reputation among our intelligence circles is well earned." He gestured casually to his technicians, who continued the data extraction. "But you're too late. We've already broken through the primary encryption layers. The Prometheus protocol is ours." Vextar stepped forward, his posture reflecting a strange hybrid of conclave military bearing and human combat readiness. "You don't understand what you're stealing, Drazkar. The protocol isn't just technical data." "Oh, but I do understand," the Fraxian commander interrupted. "Adaptation. Evolution in weaponry. The human capacity to conceptualize violence in ways no other species can." His voice carried genuine admiration. "Your species emerged from a planet that tried to kill you at every turn. That crucible forged something unique in the galaxy. A mind that weaponizes anything it touches." With startling speed, Drazkar drew his own weapon and fired at Chen. She reacted with enhanced reflexes, the prototype gauntlet generating a focused deflection field, but the shot caught her in the shoulder, spinning her to the ground. "Primitive but effective," Drazkar noted, examining his weapon. "Chemical propellant, like early human designs. Your advanced detection systems look for energy weapons." He turned to Vextar. "You see, I've already begun applying human principles." Vextar knelt beside the wounded Chen, who pressed her emergency beacon into his hand with a meaningful look. Understanding instantly, he activated it, a direct violation of Conclave protocol that would bring immediate military response regardless of diplomatic consequences. "Even if you extract the complete protocol," Vextar said, buying time as Chen subtly positioned herself for a final desperate move, "you cannot implement it. The human context is essential to its application." Drazkar laughed, a harsh sound from his respiratory spiracles. "Context can be learned, General. The fundamental principles are what matter." He gestured to the transfer progress. "With this knowledge, the balance of power throughout the Conclave will shift. Imagine weapons that evolve during combat, defenses that adapt to attacks in real time, systems designed with human ingenuity but built with Fraxian technology." Chen's voice came weakly from the floor. "You missed something critical in your analysis." "And what might that be, Sergeant?" Drazkar asked condescendingly. With remarkable speed despite her injury, Chen slammed her gauntleted hand against a hidden panel in the floor. Emergency containment protocols activated instantly, corrupting the data transfer midstream. "Humans don't just build in redundancies for our weapons," she gasped through pain. "We build them into our security systems too." Drazkar's face contorted with rage as the terminal displayed cascading encryption failures. "What have you done?" The facility shuddered as Conclave military ships established a quarantine field above the complex. Vextar's emergency beacon had worked. The protocol is designed to fragment if extracted improperly, Chen explained, a grim smile on her face despite her worsening condition. What you've downloaded is useless without the decryption keys, which just scattered to 50 different secure locations across Earth. Drazkar raised his weapon to execute them both in fury, but Vextar moved with unexpected speed, applying a human combat technique Chen had demonstrated earlier. The Phyraxian commander found himself disarmed and immobilized in a hold that exploited weaknesses in his species' joint structure, knowledge that only a human would have cataloged and shared.